Hey everybody, welcome back. It is harvest season and I'm on a rain delay. Nothing important is broken. So I thought I would try to work a little bit on this 880 expressly or explicitly, or I don't know, I might be choosing all the wrong words. But anyways, I'm going to pull sheet metal off and pull the valve cover and change out that bent push rod that I discovered back when I got it running. I've got a fresh intake hose. There's a part number in case you're wondering, for going between the air cleaner and carb. And change that out, but it's there's some green to the antifreeze, but not a lot. I put water in it to get it going, and so it needs to get some more green in it so that it doesn't freeze up on me and cause grief after all the work I've done. So get her running, get some antifreeze in it, and then I can put it on an auger, make sure it all gets mixed up good and winterized and used. A lot of this stuff I just set back on there because I knew I was going to eventually do this before I done any work with it. So, not taking long to get her where I can do the actual work. So we'll just loosen these up a little at a time because they're all under spring pressure from the valve springs. We don't have to take it up too far. But if you take up one bolt all at once, or one stud, or one nut, whatever. Oh look, that stud's turning. It can, all that valve spring pressure can put too much pressure on one end of the shaft and twist or break it. So you want to kind of let her off a little at a time. I should be able to get it up high enough without taking off the lube line, but may have to get a wrench for that. Then we'll go through the process of setting the valves. We'll definitely have to on that replaced push rod, but might as well do them all while I'm here. Now the pressure appears to be off. So close. There it goes. Partly. I'm probably asking for too much. Maybe if I do that, there we go. Well, I didn't think that sooner, but the only thing that holds these lined up is that spring in between them. So I just pushed it sideways, then I can lift the push rod out. All right, now I can go dig through my collection of goodies and find another push rod that ain't quite so curvy. Yeah, wow. I think she's bent. That one rolls. That one does not. Make sure. Ooh, it might be just a skosh longer. It is. We'll adjust that out. I think this might be out of a 1600, which is supposed to be the same engine. I think that's where I grabbed it from. But there is plenty of adjustment. Maybe. Let's find out. Maybe I'll have to dig some more. Oops. There. Yeah, that one's we'll try it out. I say there's still some adjustment to that. We want to make sure they're all in their little sockets before I tighten them back down. I think I was doing better with a finger. Same thing going back down. Try to spread the load out between the different nuts so you don't twist anything. .3/8 fine nuts. I'm not sure what the torque is on those. 35-ish. Click. Definitely not a reefing level of torque. Alrighty. This is, of course, a inline 6-cylinder engine. And all the ones I've ever worked on, never say always, because someone always finds one that's different. If you know of one that's different, the different we're looking for is firing orders. 1, 5, 3, 6, 2, 4. And so because of that, and being a 4-cycle engine, number 1 and number 6 come up at the same time, but one's on an exhaust stroke and one's on a compression stroke. Number 2 and 5 come up at the same time. Same thing, one's compression, one's exhaust, and same with 3 and 4. So by turning the crankshaft, should be an 1.8" socket or bolt head on the front pulley there. Get my ratchet on there. All right, got that ratchet on the front. And let's see. What I'm looking for is a valve, set of valves, switching from intake to exhaust, or I'm sorry, exhaust to intake. But basically one will immediately, or one will just be closing as the other one's starting to open. A little bit of overlap there usually. And that'll let me know that that one is on not top dead center firing, but top dead center exhaust. And then I can match up the other one and go from there. So I turn it a little bit. And if the ratchet would stay on that bolt, there's some dirt and grease up in there. Okay, trying to run the ratchet in there was not cutting it. Got a bunch of extensions. And in this barn, I couldn't come up with enough 1/2" extensions. So I've adapted it down to 3/8. It's working. But it's looking like number 1. So need to be watching. Do this without all the shaky cam. If we watch number 6 there, this is exhaust. It's just about to close. We'll see intake starting to open. We'll know number 6 is at top dead center for intake or exhaust. That means number 1 will be at top dead center for firing, which is where we want to set the valves at. Okay, close enough for government work. So these should both now be just a little loose. Intake was, well, Super 88 was 10 thousandths and this was 16 on the exhaust. We're gonna roll with that. I didn't have the 880 book handy, but they should be pretty darn close. 10 thousandths feeler gauge. Ooh, look how loose that is. Got this tool And it can be done with a screwdriver and an end wrench. But this one's got the screwdriver part built right in. And I will demonstrate with the screwdriver and the end wrench here in a moment. Put your, I think this screwdriver is too fat. Yes, but you can loosen your jam nut with your end wrench, and then adjust it with your screwdriver, and then tighten your wrench back down. So you don't have to have the special tool, it just makes it easier. Maybe it makes it easier. There, you just gotta find the screw. Break the jam nut loose. Come on. There, a little stiff. I want the feeler gauge where it's just got, you know, just a little bit of drag. That's a little bit more than a little drag. And then when you tighten down the nut, it's going to pull the bolt up, the stud against the threads inside of there. So usually it loosens up a little bit. I like that. It's got just the slightest amount of drag to it. Don't have to force it in, but I can tell it's feeling, or it's got touching both sides with a little resistance. And the other I said was 15 to 17, so we will go with 16 thousandths. Okay, so this is our exhaust. We can tell exhaust, whichever valves are closest to the intake. So it's exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust, exhaust, intake, intake. This one looks like it's loose too. Let's see, make sure I got the 16. Yeah, that's just a little loose as well. Just a little drag. There, I like that. Okay. So number 1 is done. So 5 will be next. So we will actually watch number 2 here. It's like I say, in exhaust, intake, intake, yeah, exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust. So this one should be coming up, and when that gets up and the other one starts going down, we know number 5's in place, which is the one we replaced the push rod on. There, just saw it starting to move. I did loosen up just because of the extra length there. And it's still, that might not work. I might have to find another push rod. Let's see what I can adjust, but there's no gap at the moment. It's just about bottomed out. Yeah, that's bottomed out. That one is not going to work. I must do some more digging, because I'm out of stud and it still isn't loose, whereas there's a little bit of gap there. And the idea of having a little bit of gap in there is as the engine warms up, parts expand. And so these tolerances actually get closer together, and that's why the exhaust has a greater gap than the intake. The intake has cool air rushing in, so this valve doesn't get as hot, so it doesn't expand as much. The exhaust valve, of course, has got the hot exhaust gases, and so it gets hotter and expands more, and so that valve stem gets a little bit taller, gets closer to the arm up here, and that's why there's different settings. Some engines, they keep them the same. I think the Perkins is the same for intake and exhaust. So I now have to, I wonder, no, I'm gonna have to loosen that whole rack up again. Some guys never learn. because I can't even get it off the push rod at the moment. It's so long. So I'm gonna have to undo these, lift it up. Yay. But this is the kind of stuff that makes for good YouTube, right? Kind of stuff you see on Rossi Oliver, man. This is where the chickens would be crowing and the donkey would be braying. And this is the part where I put the coins in the swear jar. But you get the idea. And I'll redo one when we get around to that point again, just to double check it since I'm loosening all this stuff up. Now I should be able to be a little smarter this time. Walk this sideways, pull the rod out, and go hunting again. Hopefully I'll be back soon. Well, after much digging, here's the bent one out of the 880. Wobble, wobble, wobble. Well, if you watched anybody record much in cold weather with a GoPro, you know the batteries don't last very long in the cold. So while I was out hunting for another push rod, the battery got cold. So now I'm recording with my phone. So excuse the quality. I don't want to have to run all the way through the rain to go find another battery. That probably isn't charged up either. So found the right push rod, got it in there, got the towers all tightened down. So now I just need to set number 5 here. We can tell, this is the back of the engine, 6 exhaust, intake for both 6 and 5, and exhaust. So I got my 16 thousandths, just a little bit of drag there, 10 thousandths there. That one's good. I'll probably double check that one when I come around, because that way I'll have a revolution for things to seat in. And of course I was going to redo one. So next one, let's see, 153. So we want to watch number 4, which is coming up on exhaust, for it to switch. And then we'll set number 3. Number 3 is set. You might ask yourself, why do these change? And there's a couple things that can change on them. If the valve gets worn into its seat, or the valve itself wears, it's going to come up just a little bit higher. And a few thousandths is enough to make things too tight. Then the valve stays open just a little bit. That's bad, especially for exhaust valves. That's how you burn valves. Conversely, if your camshaft is getting some wear on it, then it doesn't lift as high. The lifters can get some wear. So sometimes they can get looser, sometimes they can get tighter. Let's see, I had to loosen the exhaust on this one just a little bit, and this one was pretty much on the money, the intake here for number 3. So 153, so we got to do 6 next, so we'll be watching number 1. I can see the exhaust valve's down some, coming up, so when I just see intake start to go down, we'll set number 6. 6 wasn't off by much, just a hair tight, not too bad. Intake was just a hair loose. And the other thing with being too tight can be if the valves are holding open a little bit, you're not going to get compression, so you lose a lot of power there, some backfiring. If they're too loose, then everything's clattering and hammering. Look at that phone quality video right there. And that puts more wear on things. So the best place is to put them where the factory says. And as you can see, it's not too tough to check. So, okay, 6 is done. 1, 5, 3, 6, 2. So I need to watch number 5 here when these two switch, and I can do number 2. 2 was not off by much. Exhaust was just a hair tight. Didn't take much on that. I think the intake was just a hair loose. So 1, 5, 3, 6, 2. So number 4 is next. So I need to watch number 3 for when they switch. right there. Well, number 4 wasn't off by much, just a little tight on the intake, a little tight on the exhaust, not too bad. But got them adjusted up. So now I need to watch number 6 because we're going around the horn. Back to number 1. I want to double check that one since I took the rack up or loosened it up to, I guess, the valve train, probably not the rack. Loosen up the valve train to change out that push rod. So we'll double check number 1. Roll it over a little more. Double check 5. So I need to be watching number 2. It feels just a little loose. Exhaust feels good. Of course, intake was the one we replaced. So probably a good thing we went around the horn to double check it. I will get the tool and tighten that up. They are all set. I'm going to do a little wiping around here. The old gasket doesn't seem too bad for now. I'm going to put that back on. But I'm going to clean the gasket area up with my rag. Get the valve cover back on. Something to watch out for on tighten these. These valve covers do not get carried away. That cast iron cover, I've seen more than one with a crack running down the middle because the gasket was leaking and somebody figured they could just keep torquing her down. And the same thing, the earlier tractors had pressed steel. Guys would crank the valve cover bolt or nuts down too much and distort the steel ones, so then they came up with a cast iron, figuring, well, that'll take more, and it will, but even it's got its limits. You know, if you can't get it to stop leaking, it's probably time for a new gasket, or the gasket's out of place or something like that. And it's always easy. It's easier to come along and tighten them down a little bit more than it is to find another valve cover because you cracked the original. Here, I think she's ready to fire up. See how it runs. Let's get a muffler on there, fire it up, and a battery in it. A little colder than the last time I started her. You know, spare carburetors. think some good hard work on the auger is just what it needs to figure out the charging system. I think the generator ain't doing its thing. Well, I probably shouldn't run it too much in an enclosed building, even though it ain't super airtight. Well, that stopped it. Son of a... Okay, after a little bit of fight there, I realized the choke cable wasn't tightened down very good and slipping, and so even though I was pulling the choke, it wasn't choking, so it wasn't starting. Alright, let's get her out of here. Try her out. Got some beans left over from Sunday before I got rained off. Filled that bin as it started raining, and rather than open another bin up in the rain, just put the wagons inside. And now things are starting to dry out, so I'm gonna get them emptied out. Let's see if she's got any oomph left in her. Not a tight snap on that PTO. Should be interesting. Oh, that tire needs air in it again already. Start out with a trickle. She's already working. So far, so good. Beans go in. Couldn't quite get the last of them out on the truck, so not the end of the world.
drained a gallon of coolant out because it was, I tested it, it was good down to 5 degrees, which ain't good enough for here. So I drained a gallon out and put a gallon of antifreeze in. This will give it a chance to get mixed up. Check it again. Let's see. Thermostat. Oh, and my wagon's empty. No wonder she's sped up. There wasn't much in that one. Oh, I'll pull ahead. Okay, you know how you're a kid, it's Friday night, it's just about time for the Dukes of Hazzard to come on TV, and your dad says, go get me a beer, and you say, oh, can I have a beer too? And dad says, no. Alcohol's bad for you. Don't do what I do. All right, I've got some radiator stop leak. It is now Dukes of Hazzard night. And don't do this. Shake it up a little. Now let some out of it. Woo! Put my thumb over it. Not a big fan of you know, snake oils and quick easy fixes in a can, but I gotta say this stuff does work. Tried it out one time because I didn't want to wait, essentially, and it worked great. So we're gonna throw a can in here. It ain't all chunky and thick like Bars leak, where it's going to start plugging up the whole radiator. At least not in my opinion. Had good luck with it, let's just put it that way. So let's empty the red wagon. Now that she's purring like a kitten, even with that Zenith carburetor. Let's turn on the Dukes. See if we can make it all the way to Dallas. Better give her some go-go. up to the top. Today, some of them seem dry, and all other ones are pretty darn chewy. Looks like I better start closing some doors before I made that mistake one time. Like to watch it come in, make sure it's hitting the center, and I forgot to close these, and next thing you know, it's starting to squeeze around the door. We made it, we got it fixed. Family friend was helping me at that point. We took a chunk of silo chute and put in there because we only got up to about in here, so we just needed to shovel down enough to get the pressure off. Put that silo chute in there to hold the beams back, shoveled out, was able to swing the doors around. But well, what an ordeal. This tractor work since I pretty much started my channel, so over 20 years sitting in a barn without running. Little TLC and she's back at it. Put a new coil on it. Thanks Ross for the reminder. The coil that was on it was fine. It was a 12-volt coil, but I'd stolen that from the 1600. There's a little spilled beams there on the ground that got rained on and rotted. And if you've been around that, you know it's nasty. Oh my God, it stinks. Let's see if the temperature gauge the temperature is right. Running out of beans. Yeah, now probably the big thing's the charging system. Currently not charging. And from all the washers right there, this is not by any stretch of the imagination the original generator. I'll have to dig through my stuff and see if I got something that fits better. To give her a bath too. If this stuff don't seal up the radiator, then I do have another one. But I wanted some instant gratification. Get this baby on the auger and see what it can do. I didn't do a thing to it. I bet the brushes were just dirty from years of sitting. Had to break in and get new contact again. But it's charging. Try this again with the battery hooked up better. I said better. Oh yeah. No oil light, no amp light. I should probably turn the gas on. I didn't want to take the chance of flooding it.